The twin suns were high above the alien market, shining down on colorful stalls and floating food carts. Creatures from many worlds moved through the busy lanes, laughing, shouting, trading. Sweet smells filled the air, mixed with smoke from sizzling grills and the sound of strange music. Jared walked beside Silva, the alien girl with silver skin and glowing eyes, her steps light, her head held high. Jared was smiling, holding 2 drinks in his hands. He passed one to Silva and pointed at a stall. With a long line, aliens stood waiting, plates in hand, hungry for something cooked in boiling oil and sprinkled with pink dust. Silva watched him curiously as he stepped forward and ordered 2 plates. Her eyes were wide, but she said nothing. The vendor, a fat being with 3 eyes and yellow skin, pushed the plates forward, then growled in a low voice, "Credits first." Jared reached into his pouch, looked at Silva, then back at the vendor, and shrugged. "I thought she would pay this time," he joked. Softly, the moment froze. Silva's smile vanished. Her glowing eyes locked on his face. Her hands trembled slightly. Her voice caught in her throat. Around them, the market seemed to go quiet. The vendor's eyes narrowed. A few nearby aliens turned their heads, some muttering in their own language. Jared blinked, unaware of the sudden change. He reached into his pouch again and pulled out a few credits, laying them on the counter, but it was too late. Silva stepped back, her face pale, her breath shaky. She whispered something under her breath, but Jared could not hear her. The vendor nodded, took the credits, and waved them away, but Silva did not move. She was frozen in place, as if struck by lightning. "Do you expect me to pay?" she whispered. Again, this time louder, her voice soft and full of disbelief. Her people had strict traditions. Males provide, females accept. It was a ritual, a symbol of strength and pride. Her paying would be seen as an insult, not just to Jared, but to herself and her family. Jared frowned, now seeing the stares, the whispers, the pointing fingers. He stepped closer to Silva, but she pulled away, her skin cold, her expression unreadable. "We need to go now," she said, her voice low and tight. "Come on before someone sees us together." They moved through the market fast. Silva led him down a narrow path between stalls, through a curtain of smoke, and into a small alley, where shadows danced on the wall. Jared reached for her arm, but she spun around and pushed his hand away, her face inches from his. "You do not understand what you just did," she hissed, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "That vendor knows who I am. My clan watches everything, and now they will think I serve you, that I submitted in public. Do you know what that means?" Jared shook his head, confused. "I only joked," he said softly. "We always split food back home. Sometimes she pays, sometimes I pay. It is normal. Not here, not for me, not for my kind," she snapped. "This is not Earth, and I am not just some girl from a distant town. I am part of House Velerix. We follow the right of provision. My clan believes females should never offer anything to males. In public it shows weakness. But I did not ask you to pay. I just joked," Jared said, still confused. "You stood still," she said. "You looked at me in front of everyone, as if waiting for me to reach into my pouch. That is all it takes. They will twist that moment into a story, into a scandal." A sound came from the alley entrance. Silva's ears twitched. She grabbed Jared's hand and pulled him deeper into the shadows. A drone floated past, scanning the crowd. It paused, then moved on. Silva let go and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "It is worse than I feared," she said softly. "Someone from my clan saw us, maybe more than one. They will report it, and they will say I bowed to a human, that I followed you, that I paid for your food." Jared looked around, his mind racing. He never wanted to insult her or get her in trouble. He just wanted to share a meal, enjoy the day, maybe laugh together. Now everything was spinning out of control. "So what happens now?" he asked, carefully. Silva stared at him, her voice low and full of dread. "Now they will hunt us both." Jared blinked. "Us? Why me?" "Because by their law, you just claimed me," she said, her voice shaking, "and I did not stop you." A long silence fell between them. Only the hum of the market buzzed in the distance. Silva touched her chest as if trying to slow her heartbeat, her eyes still locked on his. "You do not know what kind of storm you started." Human and Jared finally began to understand. This was no simple lunch. This was war in the shape of a joke. A joke that cost them their peace, and maybe more. Silva's footsteps were quick, her silver boots barely touching the dusty alley ground. Her hand was tight around Jared's wrist, pulling him deeper into the maze of tunnels. Her glowing eyes flicked left and right, watching every corner, every shadow. Jared was breathing hard, but not from running, from confusion, from fear, and from the weight of her words. "They will hunt us both." That line repeated in his head again and again. They stopped at a locked door. Silva placed her hand on a glowing panel. It scanned her skin and clicked open. Inside was a small chamber, dimly lit walls covered in dark cloth, old symbols painted across the floor, and a circle of broken cushions. Silva shut the door behind them and leaned back, her eyes full of something Jared had never seen before. She looked Afraid, Jared sat on the cushion closest to her hands, resting on his knees, trying to speak slowly, calmly. What do you mean I claimed you? I didn't even touch you, Silva. Turned away, arms crossed, tight across her chest, her voice quiet, almost shaking. Claiming in my world does not require touch, only intent and tradition. She faced him again, eyes shining. You see, Jared, the right of provision is not just about food. It is about power. It is about who gives and who receives in public. When a male offers, and a female accepts, the bond is made. She honors him by allowing it, but if she gives and he takes it, means she chose a weak male. Jared rubbed his forehead. So because I stood still and made a joke, they think I forced a bond on you? No, Silva said slowly, because I did not refuse. They think I let you. He stared at her, trying to grasp how a single joke could be twisted this far. Silva sat down across from him, her posture tight, her voice more calm now. In my clan, tradition is everything we are. Proud warriors, but also bound by rules. The right is sacred. Females who break it are marked traitors, or worse, sometimes they vanish in the night, and no one speaks their name. Again Jared leaned forward, voice low. Do you really think they'll come? For you, for the Psy? No, they will, she whispered. And they won't stop with me. They will come for you too. He looked at her, unsure of what to say, then finally asked the one question burning in his mind. Why did you not stop me? Why did you not speak up before it was too late? She hesitated, then looked him in the eyes. I froze, not because I was afraid of them. I froze because for a moment I did not care what they thought. I was happy laughing with you. And when you joked, I wanted to laugh too. But I forgot who I was, where I came from, what it meant. Jared felt a strange warmth in his chest, despite the fear, despite the danger. Silva stood again, walking slowly around the small room, her voice drifting like a quiet song. In my world, I was trained to follow the right, to be strong, never to submit, never to share emotion openly. And then you came along, human, and broke it all with one smile, one shared meal. Suddenly, the panel on the door flashed red, then blue. Silva spun around, her body tense. Someone is outside. Jared stood quickly. Do we run? No, she said softly. We wait. This place is shielded. They can't see inside, but if they break the door did not open, but a message played on the outside speaker. Daughter of Velrix, you have brought shame. By walking with the outsider, you broke the right. Your bond is now public. Return to face judgment, or be marked forever. The voice stopped. Silence followed. Jared looked at Silva, her hands now clenched by her side, her whole body trembling with fury. They used the word marked. What does that mean? He asked. It means I am no longer protected by my name, she whispered. If anyone sees me, they can act against me without fear. No law, no rule, no trials. So what do we do? Survive, she said, her voice steady. Again, we run, we hide, we find a way to break this curse you gave me, and maybe if the stars are kind, we find someone who will listen. Jared nodded slowly, then asked, what happens if I just leave, go back to Earth? She looked at him, not angry, not pleading, but tired. If you leave, I will be hunted as a fool who gave herself to a ghost. If you stay, we might have a chance. He stared at her, thinking of his home, his quiet life, the safety of being ordinary, then looked at the door with its glowing panel, and the voice that had promised ruin. And he said then, I stay. Silva did not smile, but something in her face softened for the first time since the market hand. So the hunt began, not with weapons, not with blood, but with broken rules and a bond. Neither of them chose a bond that now might be the only thing keeping them alive. They moved at night through the lower tunnels of the alien city, where no sun ever reached, where the walls were wet and the air thick with rot. Silva walked ahead, her silver skin hidden under a dull brown cloak. Jared followed close behind, trying not to step too loudly. Every sound echoed down the metal corridors above them. The city buzzed with life, but down here only shadows walked. Old machines hummed faintly, and the walls were marked with strange signs, some scratched deep, some glowing softly. Silva paused by a narrow door, and scanned it with a broken chip from her wrist. A weak light blinked, and the door slid open, barely high enough for Jared to duck through. They entered a room filled with dust, broken chairs, a single light hanging from a chairnet. Was once a rest station, now long forgotten. Jared sat against the wall, stretching his legs. He looked at Silva, who stood near a cracked mirror, staring at her reflection. What now? He asked softly. How long can we keep running? Silva touched her face, as if trying to see something different, something lost. She whispered, the mark is not on skin. It is in the air around us, every sensor, every clan drone. Every elder knows what happened. They do not need to see us. They feel it. Jared frowned, not sure what she meant. So this is like some kind of signal? Yes, she said. If you wear a mark, you are cursed, but not in the way humans curse. It is not magic, it is law, it is social death. She turned to him, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. To the clans, I have no honor. To speak to me is shame. To touch me is sin. They will not kill me fast. They will erase me slow. Jared stood and walked over, standing beside her. Then I guess we need to find someone who doesn't care about honor. There is one, she said, quietly, but we will need to go farther down, much farther. He raised an eyebrow. Farther down, she nodded, and opened a second door. This one led to stairs. Going deep below, metal steps groaned under their weight. The air grew colder, each level darker. Silva's voice echoed between the steps. There is a merchant below, a keeper of lost names. He does not belong to any clan. He works in secrets. He might know how to burn a mark. Away. Jared followed her down into silence. They reached the bottom, where lights flickered weakly, and the floor was soft with dust. The chamber ahead smelled of oil and rust. Inside was a creature with 6 arms and no face, only blinking eyes on stalks. It turned as they entered and clicked its fingers. Once, twice, then stopped, stepped forward and spoke in a tongue Jared did not know, a slow, harsh rhythm. Like metal grinding, the creature answered with chirps and clicks, then turned its gaze to Jared. "What's it saying?" Jared whispered. "It wants proof." Silva said something that shows we truly carry the mark. Jared reached into his pocket, pulled out the receipt from the market, the vendor's stamp still fresh. He handed it over. The creature sniffed it, then burned it to ash, and nodded once. Sid stepped aside, revealing a console. Old wires, glowing weekly screens filled with unreadable text. Silva placed her hand on the panel. The machine hissed and clicked. Her body tensed, her jaw clenched. Jared stepped forward. "What's happening?" "It's reading the energy around me," she said. "How deep the mark goes, how much shame they've tied to my name." After a long minute, the machine went dark. The creature chirped once, then spoke in basic with a low buzzing voice. "Shame is fixed. Your bond is alive. To erase it, you must end it. In public with pain or proof or power." Jared frowned. "I don't understand." Silva turned to him. "It means we have to break the bond, not in hiding, not in silence, but before eyes that matter." The creature stepped back into the shadows. The door slid shut behind them, the chamber now still against Silva's side, then looked at Jared. "If I strike you before witnesses, it might break the bond, or if you do something greater than the Puxi, write something that shows you own no one." Like what? She paused, then said, "You give me something priceless in front of them, and walk away, something they believe no male would ever give up." Jared thought for a long time, then said quietly, "We need a stage, don't we?" "Yes," she said, "a stage, and an audience. Then let's find one," he said. But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of what was coming, something more than words, more than symbols, something that could either free Silva or break them both forever. The arena was not a place for blood, it was a place for silence, a circle carved into white stone, surrounded by seated elders cloaked in deep red. The floor was smooth, the air dry and cold, no weapons allowed, no shouting, no movement. Just watching, judging. Jared stood in the center, his boots too loud on the stone, his back straight, his heart beating faster than it ever had. Silva stood at the edge, eyes locked on him, her face calm, but her hands trembling inside her sleeves. End. Elder stepped forward, her voice sharp and clear like glass breaking. She spoke. The right was broken. The bond was formed through the silence of the female and the stillness of the male. "The bond stands, unless challenged." Another elder added. "The outsider may face the trial if he succeeds. The bond is broken without shame. If he fails, the shame is sealed and her name erased." Jared looked at Silva, then back at the elders. "I accept the trial," he said. The arena lights dimmed, then shifted to a soft purple hue. The first part of the trial began. A young alien male stepped forward, carrying a covered bowl. He placed it before Jared, and removed the lid, revealing food that steamed with strange colors and smells. The elder spoke, "Eat and wait. If the female steps forward, the bond is sealed. If you move or speak, the trial ends. If you stand still and she walks away, the bond is broken by her." Wildred did not move, he did not speak, he did not look at Silva. The food smelled like fire and sweetness. Together it pulled at him, but he kept his arms by his side. The silence stretched long and longer. Silva stepped forward slowly, her steps slow, her eyes on Jared. Jared stayed still, his breath held. She walked past him, her hands never touching the food, and never touching him, and she stepped out of the circle. The crowd whispered. The elder spoke the first. "Trial is past." Another stepped forward, holding a crystal sphere inside it. A blue flame danced. The elder spoke again. "Now the trial of truth. View will speak the truth of her soul, one truth she fears to hear, one truth only. She knows if you speak it, she may deny or confirm. Her answer will shape your path." Jared took a deep breath, turned to Silva, and said softly, "You fear being alone, not for safety, but because you have never known peace in your own heart. You fight because no one ever led you. Be still." The arena held its breath. Silva's lips parted, her eyes wide. She looked down, then said yes. The blue flame inside the sphere flared, then went out. The elder nodded. "The trial of truth is past. Now came the last, the hardest, the trial of offering. Elder spoke again. The outsider must give what cannot be taken, must offer without demand, must leave it behind. Without return. Jared frowned, unsure of what to do. He looked at Silva. She looked back, a silent question in her eyes. He reached into his coat and took out a small square. It was worn. Its edges cracked. A photo of a girl and a boy standing on a ruined earth, smiling by a small food cart. "This is my sister," he said. "She is gone. This photo is the only piece I kept of home. I leave it here for her." He bent down and placed it on the stone, then stepped back. Silva gasped. The elder stepped forward, picked up the photo, and held it to the light, then handed it to Silva. She looked at it, eyes full of something deep and quiet. She looked at Jared, tears in her voice. "You gave away your last memory of Earth." He nodded without speaking. The elder said, "The outsider has offered without demand. The right stands broken by will and pain." The crowd remained silent, but the air had changed. Jared stepped out of the circle. Silva walked beside him outside the arena. The sun was setting over the glowing towers. Silva held the photo in her hand, her voice low. "You passed their trials, but what if they still come for us?" Jared looked up at the darkening sky, then said, "Then let them come, because we will not stand still again." The arena may have gone quiet, but the storm had not passed. Word spread faster than light across the city that a human had passed the right trials. Without drawing blood, without begging, without bowing. Some called it a fluke, others called it a mistake. But one voice roared louder than the rest, and it belonged to Tovek. Was the heir of one of the high clans. A proud warrior with gold-lined skin and eyes that never looked down. He stood tall before the circle of elders, robes flowing and voice sharp like thunder. He pointed a finger at Jared and declared, "It is not over." Silva pulled Jared aside, her whisper urgent, "Do not speak until they say your name. Do not even blink." Jared nodded once, watching as the elder in charge gave a slow nod to Tovek. The crowd tensed. Tovek stepped forward with a grin full of poison and pride. "The right is broken, yes, but shame still lingers in the air," he said. He turned to Silva. "She still walks free, without scars, without price. It feels too easy to clean, too human." The elder frowned, but allowed him to continue. Tovek's voice rose. "Then let there be one final challenge, not of blade, not of fire, but of truth. If the outsider fails, he shall carry her shame and his own for all time." The arena stirred again. Jared whispered to Silva, "Is this normal?" "No." She whispered, "This is Tovek's own trial. It is ancient and risky, but still legal." Elder sighed and asked, "Speak the terms." Challenger Telf smiled, then faced Jared. "Tell me one secret she has never said aloud. Speak it before all. If you are wrong, your tongue shall be marked. If you are right, then she must speak your name as one of her clan." Jared blinked. "What kind of test is that?" "A cruel one," Silva whispered, "and rare. But if you win, you will never be hunted again." The arena fell quiet again, all eyes on Jared. He looked at Silva standing beside him, her face unreadable, her eyes glowing faintly, her hands clenched at her sides. He breathed slowly, thought deeply, tried to remember everything they had said to each other every moment since the market hand. Then he spoke. "She dreams of oceans, but she has never seen one." The crowd held still, as if frozen in time. Tovek's smile faded, his head tilted, Silva's lips parted, but no words came. Then slowly, softly she said, "When I was young I read of oceans, but my world has no seas, only stone and steam. I used to close my eyes and imagine waves, but I never told anyone." She looked at Jared, eyes wide and full of something fierce and beautiful. "How did you know?" "Because when you talk about silence, you sound like you're drowning in noise," he said. "And when you look up, you never look at the stars. You look beyond them, like someone chasing something she is never to." Tovek took a step back, his jaw tight. The elder raised her hand and spoke. "It is done. The challenge is past. The outsider has spoken true, and the bond is now on." The elder turned to Silva. "Say the name." And she did. "Jared of no clan," she said, her voice proud and clear. "From this day I name you." Jared of Velric's crowd gasped, but no one spoke against Tovek's voice was bitter. "This changes nothing. The laws are soft and the stars do not forget." Then he walked away, his back stiff, his pride cracked but not broken. Later night, Silva and Jared sat on a rooftop high above the glowing city. Below, Jared stared at the stars. For once they felt closer than before. Silva leaned beside him, holding the photo he had left in the arena. She had taken it when no one was looking. "Kept it safe. You did not have to give this up," she said quietly. "Maybe not," he replied, "but it made them see you, and maybe it made you see me too." She smiled a little, then asked, "Do you still want to run?" "Not yet," he said, "not if I belong somewhere now." And she nodded once softly. "Then maybe we start here with no more trials, and no more silence." They left the arena behind, but eyes still followed them. Whispers still filled the air. Some called Silva bold, others cursed her name. A few bowed in quiet respect, but many turned their back. Jared and Silva walked through the narrow streets of the city, her cloak pulled low, his head held high. Even when the stairs burned, even when the silence grew heavy, they stopped at the steps of a long building carved into the side of the cliff, glowing with green light symbols of the old clans marked every stone. Here sat the council hall of Velrix. Silva looked at Jared once more, her voice soft. If I go inside, without you they will say, I am running. If you go without me, they will say, I am owned again. Then we go together, he said, and they stepped through the tall doorway inside. The hall was cold and wide, the ceiling lost in shadows. The council members sat in a circle, each face older than stone, dressed in the deep blue of judgment. The oldest among them stood, his voice like dry wind. Silva of Velrix, you bring an outsider into the hall, and yet your name remains among us. Explain yourself. She did not bow. She raised her head. I followed the right. I accepted the trials. The bond is broken, and I chose to name him the elder. Frowned and asked, do you understand what this means? Yes, she said. If I stand by him, I give up my claim to bloodline rights and council seat. I lose all standing in the eyes of the other clans, and still you stand by him. My youth. The hall was quiet for a long time. Then another elder spoke, this time with sorrow. You were meant to lead your house to sit among the stars, and now you choose this, a bond with a fading race, a species without root. Jared stepped forward, his voice calm. Maybe we fade, but we are not hollow. I did not come here to take anything. I came because someone offered me a place beside her, and I did not want to walk away. The first elder looked at him with sharp eyes and asked, why do you stay when leaving would cost you nothing? Because leaving her would cost me everything, Jared said. The silence broke when a deep voice spoke from behind the circle. Let him stay. Figure stepped into view, tall, cloaked in worn silver. A scar ran down his cheek, and his right eye glowed with a faint light. It was Lorik, the former head of the house. Silva gasped. You disappeared, she whispered. I stepped down, he said, because I too once stood where you stand, and I lacked the courage to choose the way you have. He looked at Jared and said, when I was younger, I loved a human, but I let fear write my path. Now I see what that fear cost me. The council murmured among themselves, some in shock, others in quiet. Thoughtler raised his hand. If Velrix is to mean anything, it must mean more than blood, more than pride. It must mean truth, and she speaks hers without shame. The eldest nodded slowly, then declared, from this day, Silva shall remain of Velrix, but her rights are sealed. She walks her own path, and her choice stands in. The outsider, Jared, shall walk beside her, if he wishes, but he shall never speak in council, never vote, never lead. Jared nodded. I never wanted to lead, just to walk with her hand, so they left the hall together. Silva's head held high, Jared's hand in hers. Outside, the sun was setting gold light, touching the tops of the towers. The market below buzzed with life, but their peace did not last. Shadow stepped from an alley, a figure with pale skin and dark armor. Voice was sharp and cold. I warned you, Jared. You broke old things, things that do not bend, things that bleed when touched. Jared moved in front of Silva, but she stepped forward instead. We stood before the council, she said. The right is done. You have no, hold on. Yustovek's smile was thin like a blade. The council is not the stars, and the stars do not forget. He vanished into the shadows, leaving only his words. Behind. Silva turned to Jared, her eyes full of worry. He will not stop, then we keep moving, Jared said, until he's the one standing still. And they walked into the fading light, their shadows long and side by side. They didn't stop walking, from the shining towers of Velrix to the mist-covered worlds of the outer moons. Silva and Jared moved like wind across stone, silent but never still. Each step took them farther from the rules she once followed, and deeper into lands where names held no power, where old laws faded like dust in the void. But even in silence, the mark followed them, not the shameful brand of her people that had already been burned away in ritual and trial. This mark was different. It was the memory of what they had done together, the line they crossed, the bond they refused to break. And there were still those who wanted it. Under Tovek's shadow appeared on every quiet world. On Sarenfor, a merchant whispered of a pale warrior asking for the human's face. On Dramas Ridge, a bounty board briefly showed Jared's name under the word restore before blinking out. On Kelith Station 3, masked watchers followed them until Silva spun around and stared until they vanished into steam. Watched it all with calm, but inside he knew peace wouldn't come until Tovek was finished, until the final thread of the old right was torn. Then it happened. On a desert moon with red skies and broken cliffs, they entered a quiet outpost where only one food stall stood. Silva walked ahead, but this time she was the one who paid. The vendor didn't blink, just handed them their food. And Jared stared and said softly, you didn't freeze. She smiled. I remembered how you didn't. They sat under the soft light, eating without fear for the first time in weeks. Then a voice rang out behind them. Wait. They turned slowly. Tovik stood 10 steps away, unarmed, eyes glowing not with hate, but something sharper. You expect me to let it end like this? He asked. You think walking through new dirt wipes away the fire behind you? Silva stood slowly. No one asked you to follow you. Didn't need to, he said bitterly. You dragged the right behind you, and now everyone watches to see if I kneel or burn. He pulled out a small blade, not to strike, but to place it in the dust between them. One more right, he said. Jared stood beside Silva. What now? Another trial, another game? No. Tovik said, this one is older than words, older than clans. The right of reflection. We both give something sacred, we both lose something real, then walk away without ever looking back. If one fails, the other may strike without shame. Silva whispered, it is the oldest bondbreaker known. It's never used unless the grudge is too deep for words. Jared looked at her, then stepped forward. I accept. Tovek placed a pendant into the dust. It was shaped like a star with a name burned into its edge. My brother's last gift before he died, he said, voice low. He believed in peace, in kindness, and I betrayed that belief when I became this. He stood back, arms crossed. Now you. Jared reached into his coat and pulled out the crumpled paper. Silva had saved the photo, the one he had left in the arena, the one she had carried ever since. He didn't look at her, he just placed it beside the pendant. This is my last piece of earth, he said. I've carried it for years, and I will not carry it another step. The wind picked up soft and strange, and no one moved it. Tovek stepped back 3 paces, then turned and walked away without a word, without a glance. Jared did the same. Neither looked back. The bond was broken, but not the one between Jared and Silva. That one had grown stronger, not from rules, but from choice. Later, as they sat by the cliffs, watching red clouds move above, Silva said quietly, you know what that means, right? Yes. Jared said, we're free. She leaned against him, her voice full of quiet peace. No more chasing, no more trials, no more shame, just us. And in that moment, as the stars blinked awake above them, Jared smiled, because in a galaxy built on tradition, he had done something different. He had made a new right, one not of silence or shame or power, but of respect, of laughter, of standing still when it mattered, and of walking forward together.